We are so honored to have you with us. I just watched the film again, and I'm kind of at a loss for words, which is unusual for me, but your eloquence, your persistence, and the result is beyond inspiring for all of us in terms of what people can do when they put their heart to it. So I thank you for all of us. And we'll open it up to some audience questions, but I wanted to start out with a question for Jerry. Can you bring us up to speed with what's happened since the film wrapped? So where are things standing right now?
Maybe with the legislation.
With the legislation specifically.
The legislation, the House bill, the one that was introduced by Mr. Miller, it did not get a vote that year in Congress, and then naturally, 2010, the House changed parties for leadership. The subsequent chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee refused to consider the bill because he had taken a Tea Party oath prior to the election that stated that he would not support, co-sponsor, sponsor, consider any bill which required any type of new spending. And when I heard about that, I went back to that chairman and his committee staff, and I said, so basically what Mr. Jeff Miller, he's from Florida, was saying is that his Tea Party oath trumps the oath that we all took to uphold and defend the Constitution of this nation, which a lot of us signed in our own blood. I said, but that's fine. He'll regret it. And I've been making him regret it.
And is there a website, either the film's website or somewhere else, where if people don't remember exactly the specific bills or addresses to go?
On our website, which is Semper Fi, alwaysfaithful.com, there's a Take Action button. And on that page, we list the legislation that's pending. You can link to to sample letters that mention the actual numbers and legislation. And it also has a finder so that you can type in your zip code and figure out who your elected official is. But as Jerry mentioned, in this particular case, you could send an email directly to that committee and say, please support S277. And, interestingly enough, we screened the film in June on Capitol Hill. The sponsors of the legislation invited us to, and the vote that Jerry was talking about, the unanimous vote, happened a week afterwards. I mean, we were part of an overall campaign they were doing, but they told us, that people writing letters and calling does make a difference, that they really do hear it. And there was a lot of a letter writing campaign around that bill, and it did help, because a lot of bills never make it out of committee, so it seemed to make a difference.
And those of you that think that your voice doesn't count, hey, look at me. I started this in 1997. I was divorced. I was living on my farm in a single wide trailer because the house on that farm was all rotten and falling down. I moved a single wide trailer in there. I had a hand-me-down compact computer on dial-up. And when I first started going to Capitol Hill, I felt like a vacuum cleaner salesman. I'm not lying. I mean, when the door cracked open, I stuck my foot in it to keep them from slamming it shut. And then finally we got a Washington Post article, which took the whole third page of the Washington Post. And then Congressman John Dingell saw the issue, asked me to come testify in April of 2004. And from that point on, it's picked up steam. But you don't quit. If you know you're right, why would you ever quit?
And Rachel, how did you get involved with this film? And you're there from the beginning, or so you make it seem, but it's quite remarkable that we go on this journey with you and with Jerry.
Tony and I, my co-director Tony Hardman and I, we were researching a completely different film about a public health organization, and the press secretary for that organization was Jerry's sister. And the deeper we got into researching this other film, we were thinking, this is not going to work out as a film. And we were making our exit from that project, and she mentioned that her brother was involved in a situation with uncovering a water contamination in a Marine Corps base. And we were understandably a bit skeptical at first, but we agreed, there was a hearing coming up, and we agreed to go down and film it and meet Jerry. And I think that we were... Well, first of all, he had all this evidence, so he proved to us that it wasn't some sort of crazy conspiracy theory, it was real. But also, it was Jerry as a person. I think for us, we were more connected to him and his story than, that was our way in. We knew that here was this person fighting for something, and I think we were intrigued by the notion of a soldier becoming, I say an activist, although I know you don't like to be necessarily labeled that. And also, I think just, you look for, he's immediately, the ironic part that we found was that, all these skills that he learned as a drill instructor, this sort of dramatic cadence and the way that he carries himself, have served him really well in this fight and sort of as a weapon against the organization that trained him. And so I think that was really, really it. But to your point about all the things, the only other thing I'd add is, to your point about we were there from the beginning, it was very nerve-wracking in the beginning, because when you follow somebody who's going against the Department of Defense, you can't help but wonder, are they really going to, even as wonderful as Jerry is anything really going to happen? And then as a filmmaker, you think, well, you can't make people sit through 90 minutes or whatever, and that you're at the same place at the end that you were at the beginning, and that would be very frustrating. So about 2 years into we were nervous for about the first year and a half to 2 years, because we just weren't sure how much traction would happen. And then there was sort of this turning point, and we could see that Jerry was making really powerful allies in Capitol Hill, and things were starting to happen, and there was a certain sigh of relief that we felt like there was going to be some forward motion,
And I was very struck by the Marines representative, that woman who just sits there, and as she's giving her party line, like you're like, really, like, how can you be looking people in the eye saying that? What happened to her? Did she stay on in this role?
I am happy to announce that I drove her absolutely batshit. I drove her crazy, and she quit.
Really?
Yep. Gave up her government service, resigned. And ended up over in Germany.
That is a victory.
Although I do feel badly for all these people, I think, that get trotted out. I know you don't. But I feel like they're these sacrificial lambs that get there, and that, they're not the higher-ups that are really,
Right.
But yeah, exactly.
I am always very careful to tell every audience that I speak to that while I am absolutely appalled at the conduct and the demonstration of deceitfulness by the very highest levels of leadership in the United States Marine Corps, I will assure you of this one thing. Our motto, Semper Fidelis, and our slogan, we take care of our own, are still very much alive and well down at the unit and operating levels. But what really bothers me is what I'm experiencing with these people that are the ones that hold the rest of the rank and file to those strict standards of honor and integrity, can't live up to it themselves. And, this Penn State University thing that's going on right now, when any institution and the people that are in charge of that institution, out of some sort of weird justification, try to protect that institution over the protection of people, they're wrong. No matter how they try to justify their misguided intentions, they're wrong. People come first. For God's sake, without people, there wouldn't be any institutions.